on this beautiful day, but troubled period in our province and city. WhatsApp me 071 425 9577. And we are streaming live on Facebook, Kofifi FM 97.2, and Twitter at Kofifi FM _972. And we are live on YouTube, Kofifi TV, Conversations with Rosemary. Our guest today, you'll find out shortly. Before we start the day, we've had a very eventful week with all the protests going on in El Dorado Park, where I believe now it's calmed down, but the protests are now taking place in Klipspruit, and they are now in Annandale, and I'm told at Lodium also there was an uprising there. My appeal is, please, you've got issues. Service delivery, housing, safety. Let's march for those things. Let's not destroy the infrastructure, and let's not put the people that are also trying to make a living, the shopkeepers, out of business. Today, one of our staff people came in and said she didn't have breakfast because there's no bread in El Dorado Park because the shops have all been looted. The shopkeeper is also a person trying to earn a living. Let's respect each other's property. Legitimate protest, yes. Undertake it in an orderly fashion so that you don't discredit what it is that you are fighting for. Because when you start engaging in acts of vandalism and hooliganism, you are actually discrediting something noble. Housing is a very important issue, and let's not deflect attention away from the core issue, which is getting service delivery, because now everybody's just focusing on the violence element. Please, let's refrain from that. And on that note, my guest today is, I called him the warrior, as in, the guy that goes into battle, not the one that worries, or it may be both. Mr. Wayne Duvenhage from Outer, welcome to Kofifi.
Lovely, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you. Last week we had the mayor of the city of Joburg here, and one of the questions one of the listeners asked was on e-tolls.
Yes.
And I didn't want to let the cat out the bag at that time. I just said, no, it's a national competence. Yeah. I didn't want to let the cat out the bag that we're going to have you on air. Now, for those of us who are not aware of who the gentleman is that I'm talking about, we need to talk about you, the person, before we get to the issues. Yeah. Now, here you were, riding the crest of the wave in the corporate world. Yeah. You were the at the top of your game in a car rental company. Yeah. Yeah. And the move from there to becoming a social activist. Yeah. How did that happen? What sparked it? And how has it altered or impacted your life?
Well, it certainly has. Avis is a great company, leading car rental company internationally. I'd been with them for some time as the CEO, and had been in that position for 5 years, from about 2007. And in 2010, as we all know, we saw these gantries coming up shortly after the World Cup. And Sanral were asked to come on the radio and explain what are these modern space-like looking articles that they're building across the freeways. And then we got this explanation that, no, don't worry, we've built you these lovely roads, and now what we want you to do is go and put a tag in your car and link it up to our system and put money in the account, and you can drive happily on our roads. As the CEO of Avis, something was really missing because we'd never heard of this, and we have thousands of vehicles. I phoned my colleagues, we phoned people in the road freight industry, the courier industry. Nobody knew what was going on here. So we invited Sanral to explain what was going on, and we learnt about this elaborate tolling system. And and it was going to impact heavily on our business. And we asked Sanral why they hadn't engaged with us, because there were integration systems required, there were timing of billings required, and so the process started. And over the next year, we tried to find solutions for our industry with Sanral. We must also know, and you will know over the time, if I cast your mind back, the heated debates on radio and the sessions that were held, the public sessions, very belated, and the conversations that were going on. Needless to say, our industry decided, after seeing what was wrong, it was time to challenge it. And we had to set up a court process. I was the chairman of Savrola, the Vehicle Renting Leasing Association at the time. And the minute we announced a legal challenge against e-tolls, so a number of other organizations, the Quad Para Association, the Retail Motors Industry and so forth, said we'd like to join. And that's how ARTA was formed, 2012, and we went to interdicted e-tolls. I was still CEO of Avis at the time, chairing now ARTA on the side. And what we found was this massive uprising of citizens who'd had enough. Kandla was in the background, and there were so many things happening, and this was the one opportunity where the public could say, this is how I'm going to express my disgust. I'm going to drive in these gantries and I'm not going to pay, and government, you'll have to fetch the money from me. Display to me that you can manage the system, get the invoices to me, bill me properly, and so forth. And if you can't do that, then I don't have to pay. And rightly so, but aside from that, there's a lot of other legal technicalities, which, by the way, we've lodged in our court papers today.
Now, besides the aspect of consultation, which is prescribed by law, that there must be public participation. What are the issues that really grated you about the whole deal of the e-tolls?
Well, it's a number of them. The law is very clear. On a matter of this magnitude, you need to get public engagement, but not just do it flippantly. You have to do it meaningfully. The people have to have a say. And the people have to participate in this decision. That is the constitutional right in Section 195 of the Constitution. And excuse me, and Sanral had run roughshod over that right. The second thing is the minister has to apply his mind. What are the alternatives? Have you considered them? He has to challenge Sanral, and that didn't happen. And so what you have is you have an elaborate decision in the hands of Sanral, who, by the way, their board didn't even properly approve it. There's another, so the board. So you now come down to a decision almost being made by one person, not properly even approved by a board, not properly approved by a minister, forcing a very, very expensive, and that was the next factor, 27% of the revenue earned goes to the collection system. And electronic systems like this around the world average at between 9 and 10% of administration costs.
But what are they getting paid for?
Well, for the collection process, for the systems that they operate,
so they're getting
centers.
Paid for us to pay them.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly. And there is an administration cost in any electronic tolling system around the world, but it doesn't go more than 10% on average, between 9 and 10. This is what our research shows. Here, it's 27%. It's a very, very expensive scheme, over R1 billion a year. Before
and what was
R1
the justification?
Well, we've been waiting for those answers for a long time.
Because those weren't brand new roads.
No, and look, there's two elements to this. There was the need for the road upgrade. Nobody's denying that. You know, governments and cities need to keep pace with growing vehicles, growing traffic and congestion. You put in public transport systems, you widen your roads, you put in new road networks. That all has to happen in city planning. No one's bemoaning the fact that happened. What the issue was here was the collection mechanism. How do you pay for roads like this? And around the world, and certainly here in South Africa, we've been building urban roads using the fuel levy. And the fuel levy is a very good user pay system. Every time you or I start our car, we're contributing towards the use of roads. And at the time the Gauteng Freeway project was started, the fuel levy generated by government was about 24 billion rand a year. That is now 65 billion rand a year. Oh, my word.
And is that nationally?
Yes, nationally. But remember,
But most of the users are here.
Well, 34% of the users are here using a very small network of 185 kilometers that needed upgrading. The freeway, 4-lane freeway from Mabeni to Mshlanga in Durban was not tolled, but it was upgraded. The freeway bypass around PE, upgraded, not tolled.
So why did they decide that Gauteng needed to be tolled?
Because it's a lovely nugget, a very small highway infrastructure, concentrated users, and it was an opportunity to earn We've worked out 21% of their revenue from 1% of their roads. It was just ludicrous. It was really laying far too much pressure on Gauteng citizens. And remember, the fuel levy contributes to all the roads, and Gauteng users are contributing to
Talking about the fuel levy, if there is so much money in the fuel levy, why did they need citizens to pay an e-toll then? Where's the money for the fuel levy going to?
Well, exactly. It should be ring-fenced. Partially, it's not at all. Goes into the Treasury pot, and Treasury divvies that up. Now, we know as a country we have got massive socioeconomic issues to deal with, and that not all of that money is going to go in towards roads. And I don't think anybody bemoans that fact. But when a economic hub of this country requires one extra lane added, and remember, this is the one province. There are only two provinces that have a positive outflow of revenues generated towards the rest of the country. Every other country,
every other province.
Sorry, every other province. Yeah. So what you have is this economic hub needing to get to and from work, needing to be productive, and the more productive Gauteng is, the more money the rest of the country earns. It's almost a case of, if this region needs 8-lane highways, give it to them. Because it's
the goose that lays the golden egg.
Exactly. And then they go and widen these roads and then put in a system which we warned them about. It would never work in the context of this environment. And I'll tell you why. E-Natus is not accurate. Paying for traffic fines is very low, the compliance there. People could drive around with number plates that are cloned, mixed up, and you probably get away with it. Not that I'm advocating it happens, but that's what happens. That's what happens. And to put a scheme in like this, you have to have the public buy-in, and that's why it works in London, in Stockholm, and other places. They try to put the same inner city tolling system from London into Manchester, exactly the same system, and it failed because the public didn't buy in. So without public buy-in, without a scheme that is very efficient, low cost, there's 6 critical factors for these schemes to work. They fail. And this one didn't tick any one of those critical factors. We told Sanral it's going to fail. They didn't listen. They went ahead, and today it has 20% compliance. In other words, 80% of people do not participate. And these schemes fail when that compliance level drops below 85%. Because you can't chase that 20%. You just cannot ever collect the money. Well, they'll never collect the money now from the 80% that aren't.
I believe in Portugal the same thing happened where it collapsed completely as well.
Well, they launched, but it's collapsing slowly. But they're frustrated there, and it's collapsed in Edinburgh. It never got off the ground. There was a system that collapsed in Texas. Many parts of the world it hasn't worked, and it works in other parts.
And those are better off countries.
Well,
and
very well
work.
Administratively run.
Yes,
I mean, you cannot ride around on a false number plate in those countries. You'll get caught. Here you can.
Oh, my word. Now, I know that you made your organization. Listeners, we're talking to Wayne Duvenhage, the CEO of Outer. That's the organization opposing the e-tolls on you and my behalf. I know that you did put a counter proposal of a more efficient system. Yeah. Could you enlighten us on that? And it was quite simple.
Excuse me. Yeah. It was the fuel levy. We said to government at the time, this is an existing policy, the fuel levy. It works very well. The admin costs are zero compared to billion rand a year, so nothing to billion. So there's a nice choice. The compliance level is 100%, or 99.9% because of the odd battery-powered car. And if you weigh those two things up, 100% compliance and no cost, compared to tolling, 20% compliance and billion rand a year, you got to say, why aren't you going down this road? Then and then all we said was raise the fuel levy by 9 cents per litre back then. Once the roads are paid off, you can take that 9 cents back. Do you know that if they had have done that in 2007, they would have already paid the 18 billion rand for the road today? Paid off. Instead, we have government fighting with its citizens, fighting at war and litigation, lawfare strategy. They are 11 billion rand in debt, Sanral. They're never going to get that money. And we look at them and we say, what is it that you can't see?
But why were they opposed to the fuel levy system? Because for all of us, it made logical sense. It was rational.
Well, because some people have very elaborate dreams. They have these dreams of grandeur that they're going to have this fantastic system. Look, let's not hold back on the fact that people get rich out of tolling schemes. The concession schemes down to Durban, down to Mpumalanga,
Someone's getting paid.
those companies on those concessions are getting massively rich, and they are also issues that we are challenging. But a long distance route is not a route that you and I take every day to get to work. These ones we take every day to go to our places of worship.
Sometimes more than
drop
twice
our
a
kids
day.
off at school, everything like that, and to get to work, and that's what you pay taxes for. And so you must know as well that there are a number of companies that feed off this revenue stream. There's the guarding companies around the e-toll centers. There's the catering companies. There's the computer supply companies, and all these connected individuals get some lovely revenue out of the scheme.
I saw that they've got those beautiful offices scattered all along the road as well.
Yeah, there's rental fees.
So basically, we're talking about a lot of that money is actually going somewhere.
Well, it's going to run the system. It needs to be run. It's got computers, it's got cameras, it's got backup generators. It's got so much, service elements to it, and that's very costly. But it's a lot more costly here than it is in other parts of the world. And
but we didn't need it.
No, we didn't need it. We would have paid off the road
if it was
that's
the
the
fuel
sad
levy.
yes, exactly, and that's the sad reality here.
Now, your sojourn from being a corporate CEO to being a social activist, how has that impact the cultural change, for example? Because now I saw Outer in the marches, the recent protests against that the Zuma must fall, or whatever we want to, I don't know what to call it, because
No, it is a Zuma must fall
everybody
campaign.
had their own thing. That transition from being a CEO in the corporate world, where the culture is very different, to being a CEO in the social civil society activist world. How has that impacted your life?
Well, it has, very much so. I mean, I never saw myself in this space at some time. And when you asked earlier on, that transition, as this matter became quite topical and society got behind its first biggest civil disobedience campaign since in our new democracy, so the media loved the story. And every time SANRAL put out a media release, we had to respond. And there I was, fielding calls and saying, I'm going into a board meeting at Avis, or got another meeting, I'll get back to you later. And the media was saying, no, you can't do that. We have to print. We're going to print now. We need your response. And so I quickly realized that this needed full-time attention. I'd been in that role for 5 years. I was looking for something new. I enjoyed myself there, but I'm a firm believer in putting yourself into new spaces to challenge yourself and grow at least every 5 years. And so... And so the timing was right for something new. And I thought I'd take a bit of time out of the corporate world and go into this space because it required a lot of attention for a while. I thought sanity would prevail and government would come to its senses and e-tolls
you'll
would be
go
scrapped.
back to the
and
corporate
just
world.
move on. And what happened was slowly but surely over the next 3 to 4 years, the litigation journey was stretched out. We needed to raise funds. And the Outer brand started gaining traction. And then we started getting requests from citizens to say, will you tackle the carbon tax? And what about Eskom? What about Dudumnyeni SAA and the abuse of taxpayers' money there? And we gave it some thought. It was a small team out and out. It had shrunk a bit, not in its support from the public, but in support from business, because the business sector that was supporting the litigation drive from where I came, the car rental industry and that, were lent on heavily by government to capitulate and leave out. It was quite a horrible thing to see, but that's what happens. And big business is very scared of government. They don't get contracts. They don't get invited to do business. You must know all of these big fleet companies are owned by some of the Barlow Worlds and the Imperial Groups and the Bidvests of the world, and they've got sitting on their boards the Politburo, I call them. So, so what we have is what we had was business running away, civil society or the public saying go Outer, go. And so we reformed Outer, and we decided to take our efforts into a new space, and that is changing our name from Opposition to Urban Tolling Alliance to the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, keeping that same Outer acronym, revising our funding model, getting people behind us. And the minute we did that about 18 months ago, so we've seen ourselves be able to grow rapidly. We now employ an advocate for lawyers. We've got investigators. We've got researchers. We've got a communications team. finance, membership management, making sure that our people who come on board with us, that we stay in contact with them. And we've grown, and with that money, we pay the salaries, we pay the rent, we pay the communication costs and that. And this is about, when you empower an organization like this, you have to get good people. You've got to pay market-related salaries, so we're running it properly. You can't run something like this on volunteers. They're here today, gone tomorrow. And our cases and our projects take a long time. ETOLs, as you see, 5 years.
Yes, because you've been almost back in court again around the ETOLs.
Well, we're going
issue.
in now,
Yes.
and I'll tell you about that. It's quite exciting. So here we have this organization now. We're the only ones at the NERSA hearings challenging the municipal rate hikes. There was another levy they wanted to introduce, which we stopped a while ago, the Dudunyeni case. We've filed for her to be declassified as a delinquent director.
Oh, I saw that. You'll explain what a delinquent director is.
I will.
Because sometimes the corporate people presume we lay people all understand what you mean when you say you want her declared a delinquent director. In fact, I think maybe you should explain it. I know we want to talk about the outer court
That's
case.
fine.
Okay, let's because I also want to talk about water and sanitation, because I saw that's your latest one as
Yes.
well that you're going into. But maybe let's close off. Well, it's not. We can't close it off because that's been a running battle. Nazir Ali, your best friend.
Yeah, no, we're good
So
mates.
I was reading. There was also the Justice Project thing about the licenses.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's so much
Traffic
to talk
fines,
about.
yeah.
What are we? Okay, let's talk about the court case.
So what, the ETOL one?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened for 2 years? We were in this long litigation, a lawfare strategy that Sanwell has, and we had just successfully interdicted and got a review about the judgment. But what had happened? We'd bought it too late. We lost then in the second round.
So it was a technicality.
It was a technicality on the lateness in administrative law. If you bring a case 180 days after you became aware of it, it's too late. We didn't know when the starting point was because the roads were already built before we even realized it. Nonetheless, I think the courts just found this hot potato, very technical, money's borrowed, money spent. And these judges, when cases like this get so technical and big, it's difficult to rule. And the money had been borrowed. So they allowed Sanwell to continue. The Supreme Court of Appeal said, though, one thing they did give us the proviso on. If and when Sanwell summonses or sues somebody for not paying, that person is allowed to raise a defensive challenge. A defensive challenge means all the technicalities fall away, and a judge has to look at me and say, "Hi, Mr. Jones, look, I'm going to label you as a criminal for not paying, or I'm not. Tell me why you are not acting in a criminal fashion by not paying."
Oh, so it becomes
reasons.
the merits of the case.
The merits
now.
of the case. There's the technicalities of e-tolling. Can I see the photos? Can you prove it's my car? Is it my car? That's not my car. You can't see my number plate. I wasn't there. I sold the car. All of those things are real issues that Sanwell have. They are massive administrative problems. But that aside, the lawfulness arguments that we need to be heard now come into
The
play.
lawfulness of the e-tolls
That's it,
themselves.
the decision. Did the minister apply his mind? We've got enough evidence to say he didn't, and he didn't even in the Western Cape. Same time those decisions were made, and you saw the Western Cape case.
They lost the case.
Sanwell lost it right the way through the Constitutional Court. Did Sanwell apply its mind? Did his board apply its mind? All of those questions now have to be answered, and you will see how that unfolds now in court.
Well, you've already indicated that the board basically hadn't
Well, they're going to
signed off.
argue otherwise, and we're going to have to prove it, and we've got all our facts. So it's going to be a very, very interesting case. We only have to win and convince the judge on one of those. And if on one of those things the scheme has been introduced unlawfully, then I'm not acting unlawful if I don't pay. And therefore they cannot collect the money from me or anybody else. So it will be doomed. Remember also public participation. They put one advert in 6 newspapers. They hid those adverts in the business and international business sections.
Oh, my word.
They got 25 responses. There's 3.5 million motorists in Gauteng, and they call that meaningful public consultation. I mean, it's an absolute joke. And then when they're advertising, afterwards come and get your tags and participate, they spend 60 million rand a year. 60 million, and yet they put one advert when they're trying to get public consultation. So They really are a disgrace when it comes to meaningful consultation.
There's another dimension to the e-toll saga that I was looking at that you guys are tackling as well. The issue of people not being given their driver's licenses or their discs if they owe on the e-tolls. Are you taking that up as well?
Well, we quickly pointed out when Deputy President Ramaphosa back in 2015 in May, when they launched this new dispensation and they said, look, we're going to give you 60% off and 6 months to pay, come on board, and if you don't pay, then we're going to summons you. We said, fine, you're entitled to do that. And the one other thing he said is, we're going to withhold your vehicle licenses. So we said, really? Now, what happens when a national government, a national strategy on e-tolls, starts to impact on vehicle license revenues which flow to a municipality?
Oh, it's different fields of government.
Yeah, and they can't do that. And what we said to them, if you do that, you're inviting the civil disobedience fight from e-tolls into vehicle licenses. And what you don't want is people driving around with no vehicle licenses. Because then the local revenues dry, potholes can't get fixed, traffic lights, and local municipalities suffer. And they quickly, they didn't withdraw it, they just stopped talking about it. It's not there.
But legally, can they do that?
No, they can't.
They can't.
I mean, they can try. They can try. We'll fight it in court. We'll fight it in court.
But Outer will be waiting.
No, we'll take that one to court. And we'll take the civil disobedience campaign into the vehicle license space. We'll defend people if their license is denied of them on the basis that they didn't pay an e-toll bill. That case we would raise as a separate case. Yeah.
There's the other thing also. I know we haven't, there's just so many things going on in this country of ours. We live in interesting times, don't we?
Yeah, all because of one man, by the way.
And his party. The other thing I know that you are tackling is traffic fines as a source of revenue.
Yeah, look, what we do is we watch with interest on the various cases that happen around. And fines for you, Cornelia van Niekerk, very good, brave citizen, and her client got fed up with these traffic fines. They were redirecting them back to the authorities and say, these are not our fines, they belong to customers, we've sold the cars, your system isn't updated, whatever it is. And the authorities...
This was Audi, yeah?
Yeah, Audi sent to Joburg. And the authorities were not processing the paperwork properly, not redirecting, not taking notice of the what do you call it? Anyway, the manner in which the Audi Centre and Fines for You were providing the information back to the authorities to say, look, this is why we shouldn't be paying. So these fines start mounting, and then what happens is you get blocked for renewing your own vehicle licenses, what you call an enforcement order, and this has been happening, by the way, to everybody. It became a mess, and because the authorities weren't applying the processes properly themselves, this company took them to court and took the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, the Metro to court, and said, you haven't been applying yourself properly, therefore you can't expect us to now pay for these fines. We want them all reversed. And they refused to. The court case went the way of Fines for You and Joburg's centre, and the authorities appealed it, and they lost again. Scathing. Now, what that means is that the same practice that's happened there has literally happened to everybody else in Gauteng in the last 5 years. And what we're saying to the authorities is, what are you going to do about this now? Because every day people are trying to renew their licenses, and they are blocked because of these enforcement orders which have been introduced unlawfully. So we're asking the authorities to withdraw the enforcement orders or start facing actions either in class action or one-by-one litigation to get the authorities to conduct themselves properly. So that's what's happening there, but it triggered from the action first that was taken by Fines for You. And many other issues and cases.
Now, let's go to the delinquent director.
Yes.
The infamous Dudumieni,
Yeah.
the chair of SAA. Yeah.
Look, we get just tired of the headlines today, gone tomorrow, Dudu carries on, and you get these quartile capital deals and refinancing of aircrafts that don't make sense, losses, contracts that don't make sense. BNP Capital was a case in mind that came to us from a whistleblower, and we decided to interdict that contract. It was a contract whereby a small unknown little finance company was going to earn millions of rands as a result of finding finance for SAA. But SAA has already a treasury department, an audit and a finance department, very capable of doing this work. They've been doing
And
it for
probably
years.
have done it before.
They've been doing it for years, and they've been doing it very efficiently and with the banks. And then suddenly comes in this unknown middleman, and he's going to score millions of rands for doing the work that Treasury and their own Treasury department is doing. So we got the information. We said to SA, cancel the deal, and they ignored us. We said, right, if you don't cancel, we're going to interdict. And they said, okay, we'll think about it. We'll come back to you next Monday. And then we said to them, you're not listening. If you do not cancel it today, we will be filing tomorrow. So they thought we were joking. They thought, yeah, you're all bark and no bite. We had the papers completed. We filed for the interdict, and that afternoon they cancelled because their lawyers said to them, you will lose this hands down. In that whole discovery process, we learned so much about SAA and how this one person, this chairperson, Ms. Duvenhage, has allowed so much to happen that shouldn't have happened. On her watch, contracts were being entered into, people were being fired. The list is quite long. The papers are very, very thick. And we decided in law you can have somebody declared as a delinquent director if they have not behaved in accordance with the Companies Act in a manner that ensures that the organization that they are running or that they are a director within is not being compromised, is not transgressing certain rules and regulations and so forth. We looked at all of those avenues, and we felt we had more than enough evidence. And the problem is that if you allow these individuals to just carry on and do not go through this process, they move from board to board. They move from company to company. So she'll get taken out of SA tomorrow, and President Zuma might put her in with Nomvula Mokonyane in the water, wherever it is. By having somebody declared a delinquent director, they are struck off the role of any board. They may not serve on any board in any senior or director capacity. She can't even be the chairperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation because the CIPC, the registration company, is told to bar these people. They're not allowed to.
When is this case getting to court?
Well, we filed our papers 2 months ago. We're expecting their replies today. This is the cutoff point. If it doesn't happen, then we will apply to bar. If we do get the papers, we expect them to. They don't have to defend herself, otherwise she will be declared a delinquent director. Then that case is going to go to court.
That'll be very interesting if she decides to defend herself, because then all the dirty linen will be washed in public.
All of it comes out, and it's an actionable case. In other words, she's get calls to the stand. We can call the president to the stand if he's implicated in this. We can call anybody, and there are a lot of people, to the stand to answer questions.
I'm sure you're hoping she'll defend it.
Well, she must. Otherwise, she will be a delinquent director.
But she's got to weigh it up now, you know. Do I go out there and have my dirty laundry aired in public?
She's had enough time, so we'll be getting her responses, and it's going to be a very interesting case. It's going to take some time. It's going to be very costly, which is why, you know, we rely on support from the public, and that's how we bring about the work that we do.
We'll talk about that part where the public, but I want to talk about Eskom. Now, I mean, you know, it's we are like mushrooms, I think, you know, we kept in the dark and fed excrement, because I didn't realize what a cesspool Eskom was.
Sure.
It's actually scary every day or almost every week. And why has the current is he still acting, the CEO? Why is he still there?
Shouldn't be. And neither should half of the people on that board be there. Ben Ngubane shouldn't be there.
Yes.
It's shocking. All we can tell you is that state-owned entities are owned by the government, but they are businesses treated as businesses. And what we found, the modus operandi in about 2009, Eskom started revaluing in its books its power stations. Sanral started revaluing in its books its roads. Now, in the strictest scheme of business, if the value of your properties are X, you need to reflect them as X. That's according to the International Financial Regulations, IFRS. And that's all very well and fine, because when I sell a business, the assets go with it, there is a value. But you can't sell